I don't think I've ever played a game where balance was such a touchy topic. I've been talking about it a lot more recently since the Season 1 update, but it is by no means a new issue in the game. The super interesting thing about it though is, given how little balance there is in the game, it always has felt like there was some form of workaround to almost everything in the game. Whether it was the perma-grit strength builds, the perma-haste bow builds, or the American sniper musket builds, and I can go on forever, it always felt like there was at least something you could do to counter other builds in the game. Whether it was something gear or build based, or even something skill based in combat that you could adapt to and overcome. It made balance not really feel to be as pressing of an issue as it does today. So, what changed? I'm going to get into my thoughts about the changes talked about in the balance of power video, but I think the reason why balance, at least for me, is such a more pressing issue now than it ever used to be is simply because of a accumulation of changes. The roll dodge change, into the slow on melee hit change, into the season 1 fortify change, into the now PvP track update, which allowed way more people to obtain best in slot, which in turn just overall increased the overall damage in PvP. All those things combined are what I think or feel like makes PvP feel so volatile at the moment. Now, with that being said, we got word of a couple of changes coming into the game in the near future. The big one being the 150 dex change, and honestly, I'm not happy or angry about the change, but rather worried. They said in the video that the idea behind the change was to try and target the survivability of the sword and shield, great sword, spear builds, as right now the bruiser / disruptor and even the strength assassin builds, but especially the builds in medium armor, are just able to dip into that 150 dex passive, still get an increase to damage as their weapons scale off of strength and dex, but then in turn get a massive benefit by being able to iframe for a very long time, in turn giving them a ton of survivability. Now, while I agree with the thought behind this change, because there is so little balance in the game and the devs seemingly make such knee-jerk reaction-based changes to PvP, a simple change like this actually ends up cascading across so many other aspects of PvP that they weren't even really thinking about. All of those things that make dex builds annoying, yeah, they're literally going to be 10 times as annoying as before, because bows are really the only things that are the only builds that are dipping into 300 plus dex. And prior to this change, the only thing that allowed pretty much any non-mage build to actually be able to compete with bows was that 150 dex passive. Being able to have at least the same amount of dodge rolls at them made it to where it made the fight somewhat fair, in the sense that it was on me to run the bow player out of stamina and find an opening for myself to be able to win that fight. But the thing that they didn't really think about was, not only do bows get to keep the extra roll that they have, but now every other non-mage build in the game just pretty much got a massive nerf to fighting bows, because we now have one less dodge. And that's just one scenario, but you kind of get the idea. They generally don't think about how a change is going to affect the entirety of PvP. They look at Reddit or whatever people seem to be complaining about the most and then make a change based on that. But then, like I said, they don't really think about how it then affects the rest of the game. And it's kind of the thing that has me worried, because it kind of gives you insight on how they make changes. Not only that, but even the way that they go about balancing the game. It's literally looking at metrics in the game, using win percentages, use percentages, and making changes off of that. And I don't think I need to tell you that, especially in this game, that's probably one of the worst ways to gauge the state of PvP and make balance changes. It takes zero consideration into the skill of the players actually playing the game and the builds, or the environment / setting that said PvP is actually taking place in. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely a little bit scary to see. But on the flip side, we are also getting a change that'll hopefully counteract a lot of this, being the health change. The health change is actually going to be more massive than it seems because it's going to raise the time to kill back to a more healthy place. And it's not just because we have more health. We actually get a lot more things with this health increase because there's quite a few perks and skills that scale off of or are affected by base health. But overall, it'll just be really, really good for the game because, in my opinion, it'll bring things back to where they used to be. That being a little bit more skill-based and thought-based rather than the volatility that we have now. There's also rumors of a gear score increase and possibly more attribute bonuses, which in turn means more stats to play with, which in turn means more build diversity, which is always, always, always a good thing. So although I made it sound pretty grim, I'm actually pretty optimistic about the future of New World. But I really, really want to hear what you all have to think about the changes and just PvP in general as well. So please, please let me know in the comments down below how you've been feeling about the game. I really, really enjoy the conversations that we get into sometimes in the comments of some of these videos. But yeah, that's kind of what my thoughts have been on that video. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. But as always, thank you all so much for watching and supporting me thus far. And have an amazing day.